Welcome to the Background Noise Podcast, where this week we're going to be discussing the Jurassic World Trilogy. Before we get into that, though, just a quick announcement. So, most of the time when we've been doing this show, starting season one and most of this season, we've been trying to release episodes on a weekly basis, but the summer's just gotten pretty busy, so we're not going to be doing that over this summer. We're going to be releasing, don't really have a strict schedule, just like if a movie that we're interested in covering comes out, we'll be sure to do an episode on that. But yeah, we don't really have a weekly structure set up for the summer. So we'll probably be picking that up again in the fall if we feel like it. But for now, this will probably be the last week where we're consistently releasing weekly. So you don't need to be expecting an episode next week. If you feel like releasing one, we will. But at this point, we are going to be dropping our weekly release schedule through August. And if we feel like picking it back up and we have enough content to be, recording on a weekly basis, great. But at this point, we are going to be stopping our weekly releases for a little while. But anyway, Jurassic World, before we get into that, I'm your host, Jack.
I'm Joe.
I'm Joseph.
And we actually got a special guest for this episode. She is not only the biggest Jurassic Park fan I know, she's the biggest dinosaur fan I know. And instead of going into paleontology for her love of dinosaurs, she decided to go into law to protect the rights of dinosaurs. So that's pretty cool. So Christianna, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I don't get to talk about dinosaurs nearly enough, so I'm not going to take too much time right now. Let's just get into it because I'm ready to talk about these movies and these dinosaurs that I am so fond of.
Fantastic. And please don't hold back because that's what you're here for. So
safe for the tortoise noises.
safe for the tortoise noises. But Joe, please give us a synopsis of this trilogy before we can jump into it.
All right, so we start off with Jurassic World. Just like with Jurassic Park, we start off with just Jurassic World in the Jurassic World Trilogy, where we have two random kids who are not going to be important for the rest of the trilogy, so I don't know why we follow them throughout the entire Jurassic World movie. We have two random kids who happen to be the nephews of Claire, who is the person running Jurassic World, the park, which is an actual functional version of Jurassic Park, but called Jurassic World now for, I don't know, marketing reasons. Anyway, they got the park up and running. It actually is working. It's been going well for a couple of years now or something like that. The two nephews of the lady who runs the park are showing up. And at the same time, they're unveiling this new dinosaur called the Indoraptor, which is this completely synthetic, they use the T-Rex as the base, but they added a bunch of other dinosaurs to it for really stupid reasons. And then they're getting ready to unveil it to the public, but they're doing some last minute checks. And then the dinosaur escapes because apparently this dinosaur is smarter than humans for some reason. And then we have basically everything in the park getting progressively worse and worse as they herd all the people into a particular area in order to keep them safe. And then the Indoraptor, that's the next movie, the Indominus Rex goes and takes out, runs into the cage where all the pterosaurs are, and then they escape and they start eating people in the park. And it's just progressive chaos over the course of this movie, of everything just unraveling in front of them. Actually, kind of similar to Jurassic Park, except I suppose it's on a different scale.
There's more people.
There's more people, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have Chris Pratt playing, I think Owen Brady is the character's name, who's
Great.
he's just the coolest dude. He's not only a former Navy member of the Navy, he's also the person who can train raptors and teach them how to hunt in packs with him as the leader. So he's just the coolest guy. He also rides a motorcycle, of course, because he has to. And they try to use the raptors to hunt the Indominus Rex, and it doesn't go very well because they find out that Indominus Rex is part raptor, so that means it can communicate with velociraptors and it can tell them what to do. And then they finally get to a point where I think everyone else is evacuated. I guess everyone has evacuated, and it's just them taking out the Indominus Rex and they use a flare to attract the T-Rex and get it to run after attack the Indominus Rex, and then most of the Velociraptors got turned on the thing and they got killed, but then Blue, the one that we care about, survived. So she teams up with the T-Rex. They fight the Indominus Rex back near the water, and then the giant Mosasaurus comes up and eats it, and everyone's happy. And then we go into the second movie, where the island that the park was on is going to blow up because it was a dormant volcano that's now an active volcano. And everyone's wondering, what do we do about dinosaurs? Because, there are all of these animals that are going to die off anyway because they're only females, because that's how they're designed. And so we're worried about their survival, even though they're going to die off by design. Doesn't make any sense, but we have to go and save a bunch of them. So we go out. So we have a bunch of really, really over the top, ridiculous scenes of them like running down the side of the mountain as the volcano is exploding, and there's dinosaurs being chased into the water by fire. But a bunch of the dinosaurs were saved. Hooray! Except for the fact that the person who saved them is a dying old man who has some other guy spending his money for him, and that other guy wants to sell the dinosaurs instead of putting them into a sanctuary place. And so then we cut to basically an entire separate movie that is also in this movie, which is them in this old guy's mansion foiling the plans of the evil rich people to sell the dinosaurs. And then we find out that the Indominus Rex is really the template for the Indoraptor, which is this hyper-intelligent killing machine that they're going to use as a living bioweapon thing. And then they have a really tense fight scene between with Claire, the lady who ran the park, who now is just like a environmental activist lady, I guess is now what she's doing, working with Owen and some other random schmucks that we don't care about, as they fight off the Indoraptor and save this little girl from getting eaten. And I think that's the gist of that plot. And then we have
the little girl's a genetic clone.
Oh, and the little girl's a genetic clone.
No big deal.
Actually,
literally an afterthought.
Yeah, it's literally an afterthought, but it is kind of important, sort of. And then we go to the third movie where Claire, Owen, and Clone Girl are all living together.
Maisie, I think is her name.
Maisie, yes.
Maisie.
Yeah. Claire, Owen, and Maisie are living together all happily, and everything would be great except for the fact that there's dinosaurs running all over the world. Somehow they've gotten onto other continents now, so there's just dinosaurs attacking people all around the world. And this new company called Biosyn, which is not InGen from the previous movies, because it's called Biosyn, not InGen, so it's a completely different company, even though it's exactly the same idea. It's like doing the exact same things. Is like collecting all the dinosaurs to put them in a sanctuary so they can study them in a safe way so they can get like therapeutics out of it. But actually what they did is they took genes from the dinosaurs to stick them in locusts. They took genes from the dinosaurs to stick them in locusts to make the locusts supersized so the locusts would eat all the crops that aren't Biosyn crops, so everyone would have to depend on Biosyn crops for food. This is a plan. This is the plan that they came up with. And then we get Alan Grant and
Ellie Sattler.
Ellie Sattler, and
Ian Malcolm.
And Ian Malcolm, who all from the first trilogy, all team up to go figure out what's going on with these locusts. And then also Maisie, Clone Girl, is kidnapped because Dr. Wu needs to study her body because apparently she had a genetic disorder that her mom / her genetic clone cured through some viral technology, and he's going to use that viral technology that's apparently still inside her body, I guess, to fix the locusts so that they don't eat everything. Because he realized that he made a terrible mistake when he made the locusts in the first place, and so that brings Claire and Owen and some other random characters that we don't care about into the mix. And eventually, after a bunch of shenanigans, they're all in the Biosyn place, and they fight some dinosaurs, and they prove that Biosyn caused all the problems, and also shut down Biosyn, and then the world is saved. And then I guess dinosaurs just live in our world now, and that's the thing we just deal with. I
Confetti, yay!
I think that's the plot. I think that's everything.
More or less,
That's
yeah.
actually important. There's a lot of fluff in these movies.
It's a decent summary, I would say. But yeah, I guess just jumping into the first film, I would have been interested because it just jumps right into Jurassic World. Like the park's already open and all that. I don't know. Maybe one of you know if I think it would have been interesting if there was like a movie or a short film or even a book that would have explained how they're able to get all the dinosaurs under control and actually get this park open successfully. Because just
Same way they did for Jurassic Park. It's just Jurassic Park was operating successfully up to a point anyways, and now they have even more technology, so it's also working. And also they didn't have a hacker. Jurassic Park would have hypothetically continued working well enough had they not had Dennis Nedry working for, well, I don't know if we're going to talk about you know who yet because we're in the Jurassic World section, but it operated fine because Jurassic Park operated fine and it was like just kind of the next version. So I think they just assumed the audiences would infer like this is working because now we have all this technology and also it worked before and now we have even fancier people and we're also sponsored.
Indominus Rex sponsored by Verizon. A joke that they make in the movie, which doesn't make it any better.
Tostito Dog.
Tostito.
That's what they said.
Yeah, you're right. So here's the thing. I guess I understand that the movie presents it as, you know, they have been able to make this successful, but even there in the movie, they show that it's not successful because it all goes to crap over the course of the movie, right?
Well, it's funny just because they get the difference is with the first film, it was going fine except for Hammond. Obviously, well, you had a greedy hacker guy, but it was also Hammond was putting his focus on everything else that he wasn't. If you're going to take the side of the hacker, he wasn't paying his workers well enough. If you want to take that route, so the reason Park doesn't work is because a greedy hacker turns bad because of Hammond's negligence. Whereas this film, they get greedy with trying to create newer dinosaurs, and they go over their heads.
But here's the thing: like, I think that the original point of Michael Crichton's book Jurassic Park is that it never would work. Like you cannot put a harness on the Dragon of Chaos, and like dinosaurs are like the physical embodiment of the Dragon of Chaos. It's as close to a real life dragon as we're ever going to see, you know. And
nature finds a way.
Yeah. So yes, in Jurassic Park and in Jurassic World, there are specific sets of circumstances that cause things to go to crap, but the premise is it never would have worked. It could never work because the fact that you're trying to do this shows that you don't understand what you're doing. If you actually understood what you're doing, you wouldn't even attempt it. Like this is like Ian Malcolm's whole point, right? In the first movie, is this can't work because chaos is too unpredictable, is too powerful. And so I don't like this movie fundamentally because it contradicts that vision. The fact that they were able to do this for 2 years at all contradicts like the original premise of the idea in Michael Crichton's book.
I mean, is 2 years really so long that it seems like it's successful? I mean, if we think about, well, I was going to try to come up with a historical example and talk about some dictator, but I actually don't know how long each thing happened. But I mean, the point is that really bad things can happen for many years and seem like they're working before things go badly. 2 years in like the course of many years, I don't think that's that much. Not to mention when they first opened, they didn't have as many dinosaurs as they do now. Now she's made Claire Dearing, she made a comment I think about how often they were creating new assets or how now there are more demands for more assets. So in the beginning, they likely would not have had as many dinosaurs. Not to mention some of the ones that they have are like baby dinosaurs. So it kind of worked up to this point, and then they messed with it more and more. And then we get to the point where it's more likely to have its doom approaching. Like they're closer to their doom. But 2 years, not that long.
Yeah,
I kind of like that part of the movie. The fact that kind of the first act establishes, oh well, the park is actually kind of a success, but then there's the whole behind the scenes thing. Is like, yeah, who would have thought people have gotten tired of dinosaurs? And then it sort of brings in sort of that underlying thing of, yeah, this in the end, this really won't work out. And then boom, the other stuff happens. I actually didn't mind the fact that it worked for a while, but it still had that underlying current of that.
Right. I mean, I get the whole reason. What were you say, Joe?
I guess if you can buy the premise. It's just like my because I've read the book, it frustrates me because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But once you are past that assumption, once you say, "I know, yeah, you can make it work, but it's an unstable situation," I suppose that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, and come to think of it, speaking of the book, it might have worked out better because the movie John Hammond is a lot better than the book John Hammond, just in terms
That's
of
true.
general
And
nature.
also, the book John Hammond. I mean, we wouldn't have had Jurassic Park 3, and we wouldn't have had Jurassic World probably because Hammond would be dead sooner. I've read the books. But once we get to Jurassic World, I'm just like, I think, like, obviously the movie, even the first movies, they're not very much like the books, but there's enough concepts that is like good enough. And also I enjoyed the movie. So I'm like, it's fine. Once we go into Jurassic World, I'm not really thinking about the books too much anymore. But if you have read the books, they do reference John Hammond's death in Camp Cretaceous, the children's show on Netflix about like based off of this whole thing, but that's just a shameless plug for that because I think it's good. But if you wanted to reference the books, watch the kids TV show. They fill in a lot of gaps.
Fair enough.
Nice. Well, thank you for that shameless plug. I think
I couldn't resist.
I'm sure. So, well, getting back into Jurassic World, I think what frustrates me even more than just the fact that the park is working, because I know that was your main frustration there, Joe, is that Dr. Hammond would have his dying wish be to have the park rebuilt, even though he very clearly said at the end of The Lost World, the best thing to do is to leave the dinosaurs in peace. Now, Christianna I have mentioned this to her, and she has said, it's possible he had some sort of disease or something that would have, made his brain deteriorate and go back to some sort of earlier state. That's totally possible. They never mentioned that in the film.
That is one of the few explanations. I sent you several paragraphs.
It's true.
In terms of why John Hammond may have done this, and I think only one was something about like him having some sort of disease that would cause cognitive deterioration. There are many reasons.
But they were not mentioned in the film. And so, again, that frustrates me a little bit, just because I feel like Lost World made it very clear that Hammond had finally learned his lesson. And this seems like he's going back on it now, later on.
To me, it kind of...
He's Hammond.
Yeah, a little bit of that. He's our favorite misguided Walt Disney instead of being evil Walt Disney, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yes.
Misguided.
I like that description.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's fairly accurate.
And I suppose there's... See, the most frustrating thing about this trilogy is that there is the base work for some really interesting things. Like, I mean, just then making me think, okay, this is entirely John Hammond's legacy. Or, even if he wanted it to be or not, what if he didn't want it? And these shady government types or the shady paramilitary types, like, what's his face? The guy in the first Jurassic World.
The one who gets eaten.
Yeah,
angry military dude who's Kingpin in Daredevil.
Exactly,
yeah,
D'Onofrio.
exactly.
It's a D'Onofrio. Yeah. What if he's part of like some group that, like, I don't know, it's some behind the scenes thing where they, like, I don't know, they change his will or something, or they do some kind of shady operation to get the park open so they can get their weapons or something. But it's like, I don't know. There should have been a little more with that, because again, all these movies are kind of brought back to John Hammond, and the World trilogy just kind of like, he's there. He's dead, but he's there.
And then you'd also have to connect Ms. Ronnie to it, because he was the one who said that it was John Hammond's dying wish. And he's portrayed as a good guy. So we don't know if someone else, like if he didn't know Hammond well and someone else told him that it was Hammond's wish, they need a movie in between, definitely.
Yeah.
But
that's true. And I completely forgot about Ms. Ronnie. And yeah, it's been, even rewatching him, I just realized now, it's like, God, this is the definition of wasted potential.
Yep.
But then it's also really cool because dinosaur fight. But that's a
Yeah.
whole nother can of worms.
The dinosaur fights are not the bad part about these movies.
No. But these films, and some of you might disagree, I feel like it's, at least with this trilogy, these films are less Jurassic Park films when you think about the heart behind the first film, and they become more monster movies.
Yep.
Which,
Well,
they're still fun.
So that's actually, I don't even know if that's exactly correct, because
Jurassic Park is a monster movie, though.
yeah, first
In a
first
good
of all,
way.
First of all, Jurassic Park is a monster movie. First of all, Jurassic Park is exactly a monster movie. It's actually a kaiju movie, right? Because it's a movie talking about horror about a particular problem that's personified within a monster, which is what kaiju movies are, right? Like Godzilla is the horror of the atom bomb personified as Godzilla, right? So the dinosaurs are the horror of man creating its own destruction.
Genetic engineering, I guess.
Yeah, specifically through genetic engineering, but really,
And also just dinosaurs.
yeah.
I mean, it worked on me as a kid. I actually thought that like a T-Rex, attacking me at some point, or dinosaur. I thought that was going to happen to me. I was like, definitely one of these days, I'm going to need to be able to run real fast.
Actually, interestingly enough, you wouldn't. You could probably outrun a T-Rex by being a normally healthy human.
I mean,
That's
Whether
where it's
I'm a
got me.
normally
I'm not
healthy
healthy.
human is, up for debate. And not to
Wow.
mention, these wouldn't necessarily be like they have other things in them. Like what if they were faster than a regular T-Rex? But sorry, that's getting off the point.
We're digressing all over the place here. We're getting really off in the
Listen.
weeds.
Just because
When are we
Joe
getting to
can outrun
Fallen
a frog-
Kingdom?
Well,
but I mean, I do get what you're saying about the whole idea, but I feel like the focus of what?
What? Nothing.
Okay. I was going to say very quickly that, I mean, I feel like the first film, well, it definitely had dinosaurs in it, the focus was more on the characters, whereas in
Very
this, it's more on, you have characters in it, but it's, let's see the dino fights.
Yeah.
So.
They're more vehicles to get to the spectacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why in Jurassic World, like I made the point in my little synopsis, right? We have these two characters of Claire's nephews who don't appear anytime in the rest of the trilogy.
Because they're not her immediate children. They're her sisters.
Okay, but her sister doesn't appear anywhere in the trilogy either, right? Like none of those people are.
After you make your comment, may I say
two?
something about the sister dynamic? Like after all that's finished, before we go to the next thing, but after that.
Sure, that's fine.
Sure, go ahead. My comment is just like these characters are not like these characters are introduced and then discarded. And it's like, okay, so it makes it feel like they're only there as vehicles for people to kind of like put themselves into so they can watch the giant monster fights. It's not anything about the characters themselves.
I think I would agree with that. I actually expected them to come back and was kind of surprised that they didn't, but I'm not upset that they didn't because I feel like they've essentially served their purpose. But with Claire, so my sister did not like Claire Dearing as a character. She's like, she doesn't know her nephew's ages, and she was like mean. She was too absorbed in her work. Like I don't think she respected her as a professional. And we have these two sisters, and they're both technically professionals. I mean, they have jobs, but Claire Dearing is more
well known.
Like she's more like the businesswoman in the more like executive position, I would think. And that's what she does, and she kind of lives into her work. And her sister, she has a family, and she also works, but she also has a family. And I feel like something that I appreciated about this film is that they didn't really diminish either of those roles. I mean, there was the more sensitive sister, and there was the one who was more like career oriented, not that sensitive, not that emotional. Claire eventually develops more like empathy for creatures and humans, I think, by the end of the film. But I like how it didn't really diminish either of those roles. It's like there's this one who, is the parent, and it's like, and is even using the parent's lines on the other sister, but it's not really saying that one sister's like better than the other. Obviously, Claire Dearing is the main character in Jurassic World, but that doesn't I don't know. I appreciated the dynamic that they established, and I think that is one that exists with among like sisters and actual families. None of you are the sister of a sister, so you might not really get that.
How dare you assume that?
Yeah.
How dare you assume that?
Oh God, I'm sorry. Am I wrong? No, I don't think any of you have experienced this dynamic in the same way that maybe I have. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I appreciate what they did kind of in there. And then, even though there's the one who's like, oh, you're using mom's lines, they recognize it, but one is like, yeah, but actually like this kind of works. You don't understand it from the perspective that you're in right now, but it's actually kind of working, and that's interesting. And so I appreciated them, and I am not upset with Claire for not knowing her nephew's ages at the beginning, because it seems like none of them have seen any of each other in like forever. Anyways, that on them.
That part doesn't bother me at all. Like the part, like their dynamic would have been interesting if they actually kept those people as like the others as characters throughout the entire movie trilogy. Right?
Oh
like,
yeah,
I don't have a problem with
a lot better than Tim and
Tim and Lex.
yes, Tim and Lex. I like those two a lot better than them, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's not that Tim and Lex were bad, but it's just like, all right. If I gotta have a duo of kids in my Jurassic Park films, I don't mind those two.
I would have rather had. We'll get into two in a minute, but I absolutely loved Jake Johnson as the guy with all the dinosaurs on his desk, just the hacker guy. I thought he was hilarious. I wish they would have brought him back in the second film instead of the other guy, because he would have been a great addition. Yeah, instead of Franklin. Mm-hmm. But getting back to... Well, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying they should have had them both. Have them all. Add to the crazy family reunion. But anyways, continue. Are we going to get to Fallen Kingdom maybe soon?
In a bit. I was going to say, going back to Claire, my favorite part about her character is that as her character grows and she does more and more stuff throughout the movie, her hair gets more and more curly. I think that's like a very physical sign of character growth, and I don't see that very often, so that was interesting.
That's how the real world works, right? That's how you can tell that I'm the most mature out of all of us, is because my hair is the curliest.
Or you've just, been the most places.
Jack, cut that part out.
Yes, rude. Cut that part out.
Rude.
I'm offended, but anyway. See, now I'm just trying to imagine you with straight hair. I don't want that.
That's a terrible idea. Don't do that.
It's a terrible idea.
That's like imagining the twist in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Okay, we're on that one.
Well, there's. I mean, this is true for all of them. So I'm going to say this. This is a true criticism in all three of the movies, which is that in Jurassic Park, every time a character dies, that death is treated reverently, like an actual person has died. Right? Every single death is meaningful. The only, like in the first movie, the only death that isn't shown on screen in a meaningful way is when Samuel Jackson's character dies, and even then, it's treated as horrifying when it's discovered by the other characters, right? Because it's used as a jump scare death.
Wait, are we not going to refer to the lawyer who gets eaten off a toilet?
I mean, it's still okay. I guess that one's still okay, but it's a lawyer.
Nobody likes the lawyer.
Every single person that dies is treated reverently. Lawyers aren't people.
Because the lawyer's not a person, right?
The lawyer just left the kids. He's the worst.
Wait.
I'm being sarcastic.
No, he's not great. We don't like him.
The point that I'm making.
No.
The point that I'm making is that in the Jurassic World trilogy, in all three of the movies, we have just comical, irreverent deaths all over the place. We have a moment where
that babysitter. That hurts.
Right, like the British babysitter lady who gets picked up by the pterosaur or whatever, and is like carried around, and she's like thrown up and down, and it looks like supposed to be hilarious that she's getting tortured to death before she finally gets eaten.
My mom loves that part of the movie.
God.
Like that's
she
the thing.
She wasn't that bad of a babysitter.
Yeah,
the kids were just bad at sticking with her.
Yeah, that's my problem. Is that all of these deaths are treated as though they are hilarious, whereas like the first movie, like Jurassic Park, is treating people dying as an actual big deal, whereas in this trilogy, it's everyone else dies, and it's hilarious, and our main characters that we care about are immortal. They can just not.
Well,
They can
Lockwood's death, I think, wasn't.
Who's Lockwood
but he's
again?
not killed by
Shoot.
dinosaurs.
That's probably the exception. He's the old guy who worked with Hammond.
Oh, in the helicopter.
No, he's Maisie's grandfather.
The pillow to his face.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
But see,
okay.
Like he's not killed by dinosaurs, right? He's killed by another human, and so there's like a human interaction there. I guess I mean all of the dinosaur deaths, all of the deaths by people by dinosaurs is just like, oh, haha, that guy got torn apart by velociraptors. That's so funny. Oh, that lady got picked up by pterosaurs. Whoa, ha ha ha. Oh, he got swallowed by a T-Rex.
Visit D'Onofrio's. That was the one that makes sense to be slightly irreverent because he's just
humorous because he's just the worst.
I can't. What is it? I can control these things. Look at this, and then he's done. But
a cartoony villain deserves a cartoony death.
Ooh, that's a good one. Cartoony. It's definitely. I suppose that's the word that kind of goes with the trilogy in good ways and bad. Because again, there's that extra step of, I suppose, non-realisticness that elevates like all the action stuff. But then I suppose that's where it makes the character bits fall down because like you said, the dinosaur related deaths are so ridiculous or so slightly cartoony that it's like this is kind of a different attitude, which I suppose it's a different trilogy, but I don't know.
It's also a different generation. I mean, the original generation, yes, they're I guess watching these movies too, so they are appealing to a wide audience, but the newer people watching these movies, I mean, they love that stuff. I think it's telling not just of the people who like made the movie, but also who they think is going to be watching it. I mean, I myself am guilty of also finding some of those deaths funny, but I think it's more because of how maybe like we are viewing death differently, and they I don't know, they kind of went off and just tried to be. They shoved so much in there, and a lot of that muchness was like just random dino deaths of people that we're not really supposed to care about, so we can just like enjoy watching people die or really more enjoy the creatures, like enjoy the things that they're doing with however they use these. I mean, like CGI stuff, like, oh, enjoy what we made, look at our art, and we're also making it, people dying, but it's not people that you care about, so you can like guilt-free appreciate the
carnage.
Oh
yes, the carnage. Thank you.
I mean, let there be carnage, but
no.
Shameless plug again. Stop with the shameless plugs. Going back very briefly to what Joe had said about Samuel L. Jackson's character, it would have been ridiculous, but I would have totally loved if they could have gotten us a one-armed Samuel L. Jackson in like either the second or third film coming in. I mean, because we didn't see him die, we just saw his arm. So, I mean, he could have been the real villain the whole time in this trilogy, or he could have come and save everyone at the last minute and then get eaten by a dinosaur. I don't care, but it would have been hilarious to have him back.
He's been surviving on the island for 40 years or however long.
Oh my goodness. They could have done so much with that, and I would have loved it.
That sounds like a bad fan fiction, and I'm actually glad they didn't do that. Thank you very much. I've read enough bad fan fiction as a child.
Well, hold on. No. The Pachydilophosauruses is that like get the guy at the end of this last one. Those were trained by Samuel L. Jackson.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
If you look really closely, you're going to see a theory video coming out very soon. If you look really closely, you can see the glint of his eye in the shadow. He's there.
Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're supposed to be talking about it.
Kingdom.
Yeah, we were talking about how different audiences with different expectations, which I think is a good segue into the characters of Zia and Franklin, who are the two most annoying human beings that have ever existed.
Oh, Franklin, I adore Franklin.
No, he is so obnoxious.
He screams too much.
He is
obnoxious.
What?
You're obnoxious.
Thank you. I appreciate that. He's obnoxiously incompetent. Like it's annoying, and I feel
he's good at what he does.
The reason they annoy me is I feel like they're supposed to be the millennial characters that are like quirky and weird that you're supposed to identify with if you're in that demographic of people, and they're painfully like created that way, and it's very obnoxious.
He's a more likable, less malicious Dennis Nedry.
He was better Detective Pikachu.
That is the same actor. I was wondering
Ryan
why he was
Reynolds?
familiar. He was significantly better in Detective Pikachu. He was not obnoxious in Detective Pikachu.
But I kept missing Jake Johnson because he was such a brief character, but I just like Jake Johnson as an actor anyway. And I feel like he would have been a much better
hilarious.
hacker character.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it wasn't.
He was never established as being good at that sort of thing, though. Like, he wouldn't have. He was in like that main room. He was administrative, not necessarily the like technician or hacker.
I know,
and
but
also,
I would have bought
want
it.
him to be Dennis Nedry. Nedry is a bad guy.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's a less malicious one.
Well, actually, that's an interesting point because Dennis Nedry is not a villain. Dennis Nedry is a person who's just trying to do the things that he thinks of for himself.
He's just selfish.
Which is what everyone at Jurassic Park is doing, right? Everyone in that movie is doing what they think is the right thing to do. Whereas in Jurassic World, all three of these movies, we get people who are like cartoonishly evil people. You know, like the guy who is willing to smother his boss with a pillow.
So sad.
Nedry, actually, what Nedry is the more like the henchman, because
Sure.
Dodson in that movie, I mean, he's the one who's actually like kind of aware of but they're both aware that they're participating in exploitation, and we don't actually know that Nedry is or is not paid a livable wage. And maybe if he stopped buying things from the vending machine, which are probably at an inflated price, then I mean, we don't know.
That would
don't
solve
know
his
his
problem
actions,
right there.
Yeah.
Boom.
Could be.
That would have stopped. Jurassic Park would still be around if him and just had one talk. It's like, Nedry, we're getting rid of the vending machines. I know they're a temptation for you, my man. We're just gonna stop.
Well, then we couldn't actually have the whole descent into chaos and Ian's whole thing, and then we wouldn't have the message anymore. Sorry.
Well, the point of Ian Malcolm's whole thing is that it doesn't matter why it would have descended into chaos anyway. Like the hurricane might have taken everything out on its own.
Right.
So,
nature finds a way.
Nature finds a way.
Then we would have the shark. We'd really have Dino Sharknado, if that happened.
No, Dinado.
That would be a better movie.
No, don't you dare.
That would be better than Fallen Kingdom. It would have been a better movie.
Well,
I was wrong. That's the hot
different
pick
type
of
of
the
movie. Different type of movie.
It would have been, yes. So here, I guess, like, there's like specific nitpicky things in Fallen Kingdom. I'm just gonna say I was bored that entire movie. Like, so
I wouldn't go that far.
This is the reason why I was bored. There's a scene in like one of the first really action-y scenes, right, where Claire and Franklin manage to climb their way up on top of the building, and there's like a lava flow coming down the side of the mountain, and then Claire, Franklin, and Owen are all running down the side of the mountain, which is spewing lava everywhere, and there's lava fumes coming down, raining on them, and they're getting trampled by dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs are getting eaten by other dinosaurs, and then they're getting chased by those dinosaurs, and it's just too much. And it's like there's no stakes because none of those characters are going to die, right? All three of those are main characters.
That Brontosaurus died. I still feel bad about that.
That hurt. I almost cried.
That was pretty sad.
Okay. None of the humans are going to die. And so I'm just like, this is actually boring. Watching this just blatant spectacle of CGI nonsense is boring to watch because there isn't any stakes attached to it. I don't have any
noise.
It's exactly right. It is just noise. It is just visual noise. It's the equivalent of like just playing white noise in the background, but as a visual thing. And so, like the only fight scene in Fallen Kingdom that was even kind of interesting is where they're on top of the glass, like I don't know, greenhouse kind of thing, and they're trying to fight the Indoraptor. And there's a lot of tension there because it's at the end of the movie, and it's like, okay, maybe one of these guys dies because it's the end of the movie, and that's the end of their character arc, right?
Right.
Like, that's the only, and even then, it can't just be we're fighting this dinosaur. It has to be we're fighting this dinosaur on the glass roof, and I think it's raining too, or something like that. There's a lot of drama stuff going on, and it can't just be the fight. It's still got to be even more stuff. And so that's the thing that annoys me, that it feels the need to just be more and more and more spectacle, and it just becomes noisier and noisier. And that
I have to agree with.
Yeah, that more than any, there's all these nitpicky things about like characters I don't like and things like that, but that more than anything is the thing that I don't like about really all three of these movies.
Yeah. Well, I think what frustrates me the most about this one compared to even though all three films do it, is I feel like this one borrows from the other films so much. Like, I feel like it borrows a lot from The Lost World, first one. Even some stuff from the previous films, like, hey, you know what the bad guy is? It's another clone dinosaur. We're just going to do that again. It works. And even though I didn't like it, I do think it's funny in the third film, left field, not a clone dinosaur, locust. But we'll get to that. Because what's scarier than dinosaurs? A locust. Boom. We took some polls. Apparently
we're going
that's a thing.
for some more realistic threats here. Boom.
Yeah. I feel like my big complaint with the film that was just annoying more, I was thinking about it, was, because we mentioned this in our Jurassic Park episode, is I did think it was weird that how in the original trilogy, we only get to Isla Nublar once. It's in the first film. 2 and 3, we never see it. We're all on Sorna. This film, we never see Sorna. Not that I'm aware of. It's all on Nublar. And you'd think, instead of getting the dinosaurs moved to the mainland, like Claire's trying to do, get them all moved over to Sorna.
Yep.
That's where they were.
I think the writers might have just forgotten.
Yeah, Jack, you're attributing a level of competency to the writing team that they don't actually deserve to have attributed.
Oh, I'm
to them.
sure, but still, I mean, well, the thing is, if they did that, they wouldn't be able to make Dominion. If they did bring it over to the mainland, they would have no third movie.
So this is something that several people have pointed out to me, which is that Fallen Kingdom is not actually a movie. Fallen Kingdom is a bridge between Jurassic World and Dominion.
It's Dominion Part 1.
Yeah. Well, it's Jurassic World.
I don't
want to
attribute that to
Dominion.
I don't want them to I don't want it to contaminate Dominion. Not that I don't like Fallen Kingdom, I do, but I feel like even though I knew Dominion was also going to be too much and it's going to do even more muchness, I feel like they did muchness even better because it's the finale. You pull out all the stops, whereas Fallen Kingdom wasn't the finale. They had muchness. I want to think of Dominion separately and special.
Well,
I do like Dominion better, and we'll get into that. But what were you going to say, Joe?
No, I had a thought, but I wasn't really an articulated thought, so we can go on.
Okay. Well, something I was going to say, because we haven't even mentioned him yet. I think Chris Pratt was fun as Owen. I like him as an actor anyway, so here's no different. He's a very static character. I don't think he really grows at all, but he's still fun. He's just this macho guy who can do whatever he wants, and he not only does he empathize with dinosaurs, but he's also, he has possibly the most underrated tool weapon in the entire trilogy, which are his hands. If he had used his hands on more dinosaurs to calm them down, I feel like we would only have one movie. It's amazing how many times that works for him.
I thought you were gonna say. Like that gun he has in the first one. It's like, yeah, he's got a gun. He can actually defend himself.
No, I was going to say a gun. I was say like his hands. He pulls a pickup, or it's not a pickup, a hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon. Like he pulls it 3-4 times each movie. It's like, dude, just do that with every dinosaur you encounter, and there you go.
Yeah.
They exploited that in a bad way because at least in Fallen Kingdom, he's using it, I think, mainly, if not solely, with the Raptors. And at least I'm just talking about Fallen Kingdom now. And the reason he's able to do that is because he was with them since they were babies, which is also something that they're showing videos of him with the infant, juvenile raptors.
Baby blue.
So that's that was a whole training technique. There was that bond because he was there. It's almost like there was a sort of imprinting thing that happened. So that should only work on the raptors, and beyond that, it should only work on the raptors that he trained. So
sure,
that he's not magic. I mean, he's great. Great character. Obviously, also extremely attractive, but his hands can't. Please don't make him magic. We've got enough. This is our We've got a little bit of maybe horror, a little bit of science fiction. Do not bring magic into this.
No, you don't understand. He does the thing. It's his thing.
It's
Audiences
his hands.
recognize that.
He has a superpower. His superpower is magic hands. Don't take
Yes,
that away
well,
from him.
No, if he
That's
has
his-
to, they're gonna make him be one of the Avengers at that point if they do that, and at that point I am done. This
I mean,
whole white
no.
noise explosion stuff you're talking about not liking in
Yeah.
Fallen Kingdom is why I'm not a Marvel fan, because all of it seems
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
too many explosions and
It's getting
boring
there,
to me. Sorry to everyone who likes Marvel.
Well,
No,
we,
it's getting there. That's one of
They
that's
They
one
do
of our
more
main
than that. I know they
franchises.
do more, but
Yeah.
still.
everyone in this chat is, I think, formal Marvel fans or formal Marvel fans that haven't realized that they're formal yet.
You're in a safe place.
This is just an AA meeting for formal Marvel fans. That's
Yeah,
pretty much
yeah.
what this podcast is.
I'm Joe, and the last thing I
But-
saw was Moon Knight.
Yeah.
What was I
Anyways,
saying?
Chris
Oh, yeah.
Pratt, Fallen Kingdom, Magic Hands, Baby Raptors.
Yeah, and so I mean, again, I would have totally been fine if they were just going to stick with him being the Raptor Whisperer with his hands and all that, just to the Raptors that he trained. Right? I'm totally fine with that. I thought they actually handled that well. It looked stupid in the trailer when I first watched it. I remember that I was like, "Oh, it's going to be dumb," but I actually think it worked, and I was fine with that. But when we see him do it with one or two other dinosaurs, I'm like, "Okay, he has magic hands now." Right. Before I bought it, now it's like, okay. But anyway, I feel like unless there's anything else you guys wanted to cover in particular, we should probably jump into Dominion at this point.
I think we're done with Fallen Kingdom. That's all that movie deserves.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. I will just say,
Uh,
like, that's probably the one that's least enjoyable to watch on repeat. That's probably my expertest opinion, because I've watched all of these movies multiple times except for Dominion, and Fallen Kingdom is probably the one I would not repeat as much, and that's probably why it's going to get a lower ranking later. But yeah,
Fair.
Dominion.
You're here.
Something that's sort of, I think, bridging pretty well from the second to the third. Not really a huge fan of Maisie as a character. She's fine, but I feel like she was mainly introduced in Fallen Kingdom to bring something new to the franchise, which I do appreciate. They're trying to bring something new with human cloning, because that's something they've ever done in any of the other films. It's just new dinosaurs here, new dinosaurs there, all of that. But I feel like they didn't really know how to follow through with that well in the third film, so they end up with just using some of her blood to kill some locusts, even though I feel like they could have probably just used Little Blue, who I'm totally forgetting the name of.
Beta.
Baby
Blue and her
Beta.
aren't going to be, yeah, Beta and Maisie aren't going to be the same, though, because they didn't change Beta after Beta was born. It was Maisie that was altered after being born. Like, so it's really different, but I'm not sure. I mean, maybe you picked up on something in the movie that I missed, but I didn't ever hear Wu say that he was specifically going to use Maisie's blood. I think it was he needed to study what processes happened within her
Yeah.
when Charlotte, her mother slash, the person she was
Genetic
cloned
clone.
from.
I think
changed.
that's probably closer to what happened, but it's still like, so that's the big buildup for Maisie's character, is just to be studied. That's it. It's like, I don't know, it just feels like a bit of a letdown when they introduce something so revolutionary in the second one, so different. But
This is actually very disappointing now that I'm thinking about it, because they actually set up something that would have been really interesting, right? Like,
yeah,
when she finds out that she's a clone and she's like, am I even a person? Who am I?
yep,
Am I even a real person? Should I be treated like a person? She has this identity crisis.
right.
And then it's like, your purpose is so that we can figure out a cure for these locusts that we made. That's your entire purpose for existing. And that's
No.
That's her
No,
cure
no,
for
no.
her identity crisis.
That is off. That is not her purpose.
Yeah, well,
Her purpose, like, first of all, she was like, Charlotte didn't know anything about these future locusts. Charlotte wanted to have a daughter, and if you think about it, or no, she wanted to have a child. I guess it didn't really matter if it was a daughter, but because of the whole, pretty much exact clone thing, that's why it was a daughter.
Mhm.
That's pretty similar to how people end up having kids today, aside from accidents. We're not going to talk about those, but people are like, oh, I want a kid, and I'm now having a kid. That's basically what she did. But the difference is that she was a really smart scientist, and so she could also like kind of study that, but she also was aware of her own genetic disorder. So she actually like came up with a way to solve a genetic disorder, which could apply to other genetic disorders. So she was like the first in this. So she was kind of an experiment, yes, but it was her ultimate purpose had nothing to do with the locusts, because her mother had no knowledge of that happening. her mother wanted a child that, I mean, they say that, she loved her like an actual mother would love her daughter that had genes other than hers. And then she also wanted her to live a better life, which I think a lot of parents want for their children. So she then, fixed the genetic disorder. And then that research was supposed to be used later for genetic disorders in other humans. So there was a much larger purpose. In this film, they were basically, oh, we want you now. The only reason they wanted to kidnap her and take her to Biosyn was then wanting to rectify a mistake that they say Wu made. But he probably also wanted to see how the research had gone, and then he ends up showing her the clips of her mother and everything. So there is a lot more to her, which I thought they did a good job with, but no one seems to agree with me.
I mean,
I agree that the problem is that it presents this theme. It presents the interesting question of, if you are a clone, are you a real person? Are you just a copy of your original? That's an interesting existential question. And instead of actually addressing the question, they say, "Oh no, you're not a clone. You're actually not a clone because you're a different way of making a baby that how babies are normally made, but you're actually not really a clone. So you have a purpose the same as a normal human." And that's my frustration. Is that they present this question of, do clones have rights? Are clones really people? How should we treat them?
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of actually answering the question, they're like, "Oh no, this person actually isn't even a clone, so the question is moot." And then instead we go into the genetic disorder.
Were this not the conclusion of the series, then they should go into that, maybe. But also, I'm okay with them not really. Maybe they shouldn't pose an existential question if they're not going to answer it. I'll accept that. But I also feel like I answered it in my own mind as I was watching it. I was like, are they really gonna answer this? And I was like, well, I think it was more like, am I exactly the person that was there before me? I'm not my own person. I am the person who I was cloned from, is kind of the vibe I was getting. I was like, that was really the only question I ended up answering, instead of going far enough back to be like, can a clone be treated as a person? It's like, am I my own person, or am I this other person? And she was raised in a completely different environment, and actually is genetically different because of what Charlotte did. So I feel like that was it. Just kind of, you can infer that's like, oh yes, okay, she is her own other person, but it still obviously, as you mentioned, does not answer how clones are to be treated. But if they went into that, I don't think they could have enough even time to be a dinosaur movie anymore. I feel like because they had so much muchness. If they had removed some of that extra stuff that they threw in there, which I would kind of be okay with them if they had done that. Although I do like when the dinosaur with the really long claws, it's like they're a sign of something, slaps a deer.
Therizinosaurus.
Love that. But aside, that muchness, I need them to keep that in there. But there's other stuff they could have removed. Probably some of that underground black market stuff they could have taken out, and then gone more into talking about clones. But they didn't. But at least they did not make dinosaurs combined with people, because I heard before even Jurassic World came out that was something that they were thinking of doing, and they were going to make these weird hybrid dino people, and at least they didn't do that. So hats off to them.
The concept art of that is uncanny. It looks
ugly,
like
Sonic bad.
Worse. You know, what is it? People who believe in the reptilian theory, they just look like that. They look like reptilians. It's like, what were they doing? So
it's they were like Star Wars aliens for sure. They were going it looked more like we were dipping into the reptilian looking Star Wars aliens. Oh no.
Exactly. And I suppose, really, going back to that, the two big philosophical questions. If they just switched them, from the movies, if they took the one from Dominion and kind of explored that more in Fallen Kingdom, that probably would have been a better resolution there. And took the one from Fallen Kingdom, put in Dominion and stuff like that, and that would have led to something a little better there. And that's a symptom of something that tells me that this is just another one of the big misgivings of the modern trilogy or the modern franchise, with some exceptions, that they just didn't plan it out. It's
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
okay, this worked. Well, maybe it worked a little bit. Let's do something close to that in the next one. Yeah, that'll get people in. It's just
Yeah, they didn't think about asking it until after they'd formed all the fancy extra scenes of all this crazy stuff happening in Fallen Kingdom that we didn't actually really need. So, like, I think it was closer to the end, and they're like, yeah, now we have, like, Maisie. They're like, oh, they're real. They're like me. Now we've established that she's real. Maybe we'll ask another question later that we could have explained in this film, but we really like that lava scene, you know? We certainly can't cut, like, a whole minute of
You can't
that.
cut a lava
can't
scene.
get
Come
rid of the
on.
lava scene.
You can't cut literally all of that scene.
You get enough of the fire stuff in the fire locusts. We haven't even really
Ah.
talked about the fire locusts in their proper section yet, because now we're actually in Dominion, finally.
Hey, talk about
They
the
permeate
part-
every single part of the conversation, just like in the movie.
Talk about the scene where the movie that had been spending the entire runtime jumping the shark finally jumps the largest and biggest shark.
Jumps the mosasaur, if you will.
I
get one. I get one. All right.
We'll let you have that one. I'll let you have that one.
Acceptable, tolerable,
Even though
maybe.
mosasaurs are nothing like sharks whatsoever, but I'll let you have that.
I would
I mean,
tell
they
you-
have
bigger, and they
teeth.
have more.
They're in the water.
Yes, that too.
Yeah, I will say before totally trashing on the fire locusts, the one scene where a T-Rex eats a fire locust and breathes fire was something I didn't know I needed to see, but I'm so glad I did.
Well,
That
it
was so
fulfills
cool.
that desire. Because the reason we like dinosaurs, I think, is this, like, part of it is just that they are the dragons that were there. I mean, like, they're dragons. And so when we finally get to see one be a dragon, even if we've never actually thought that the reason we're interested is that they remind us of the mythological and, like, dragons, once you see it, it's like it's fulfilled something you weren't thinking about at, like, a fully conscious level. It's like, oh, those are two things that should go together in my mind if you've ever had a history of, like, reading, I don't know, like, that type of mythology.
There may be something there that
Subconscious
wasn't there
wish.
before.
There before. Oh dear.
I mean, listen, as a person who loves dinosaurs and dragons, I do appreciate that. It is the problem is
Yeah.
the problem is it's too campy of a thing to happen. Like I absolutely agree that, like, showing you the fact that the reason you like dinosaurs is because they are the I don't in some way they are related to dragons in our brains. Like that 100% I agree with. But, like, showing a T-Rex breathing fire is just a little too campy for me. I mean, I guess not so much of the Jurassic World series, which is so ridiculous anyway. It's too much muchness, as you said.
As true as that statement is about the whole association thing, I think you're giving them a little too much credit. I think
I'm
it's just
not
like,
saying they
what
thought about
if?
it. I'm saying a happy accident. Bob
Okay,
Ross,
yeah,
okay? They did
yeah.
a happy accident. It can
They pulled a
happen
Bob
to
This
anyone.
movie could be described as a happy little accident. That's a good point, actually.
Because in all the muchness, I mean, I must say, I can accept that in this movie because it's the conclusion and they're pulling out all the stops and it's chaotic and crazy. And also the entire thing, it feels kind of like a crazy family reunion where you've got kind of the slightly grumpy, but, like, you know, really admirable and adorable grandfather, which is obviously Sam Neill, Alan Grant. And then you have the grandmother who's crazy, who's, like, doing all these things. And you're like, what, aren't you a little old to be, like, you know, going on these adventures? That's Laura Dern, Ellie Sattler, right? And you've got, I feel like Ian Malcolm's a little bit of
Either the kind of weird uncle or the wine aunt or both. He's just kind of the eccentric one, but I don't think that he's a cousin. I think he's definitely like an uncle/aunt type character. He's filling that role, especially with just his speeches of grandeur and all crazy things. And then we have kind of the moody teenager in Maisie, even though they don't really go that much into it. It's more at the beginning of the movie, which is kind of fair because they really are trapping her, and it's reminding me of Stranger Things in 11, which we're not going to go into. And then there's, like, I don't know, like the sad cousin whose life didn't work out, that in Dr. Wu. And I must say, I love what they did with Wu. I mean, he's there in his cardigan, he has long hair, he's sad, he finally regrets things. And I think that is exactly what would happen to someone in his shoes, because he didn't get enough credit early on. And people seem to be, I don't know if patronizing is the right word, but they weren't treating him like he was as smart as he was. They're like, well, what if they like, repopulate and do things? And he's like, no, they're all female. Like, why are you asking me these questions? Why are you acting like you can find flaws in something that I know so much more about than you? Which, I mean, yeah, it's annoying when people do that. So I get how he could have become kind of annoyed early on. And then later he's like this big fancy guy and he's doing all the things. And then he has this boss who fires him for essentially doing what he told him to do. And there were consequences, but it also had something to do with Wu's arrogance. And then he becomes like, now he really makes a mistake that affects really the world that he's living in. It's no longer just like, I don't know, like a few people died because of a dinosaur. Like, oh, okay, well, a dinosaur made another dinosaur. Or like, oh, sorry, this one disguised itself because it had these genes in it. These, like, I think it was cuttlefish genes. That was all the way back in Jurassic World. And now it's like there's these locusts that I don't even think the locusts were necessarily his idea. They're just kind of using him as like a puppet to make things. And he did it. And then he's like, he didn't realize what the consequences were going to be. He's like, oh, now I made a big, big mistake. And he's probably already kind of fallen from the height of his arrogance down into what is now reality. So he's facing that and he is sad. And even though Ms. Ronnie got on his nerves, I mean, he might not be happy that he died. And now he's with these other people that are just obnoxious and have like no moral standards. And there's so much manipulation going on. And he's not really in charge and he doesn't like not actually having any authority, but also he had just enough authority to like be responsible for a mistake, even though it's not actually being blamed on him directly, because I don't think people know that he is employed by Biosyn, because I think if people knew that, that would be like a red flag for Biosyn, second in gen. So people can't know that he's employed. So he's actually really accepting the blame. Like, I feel like his regret is genuine and I really appreciate that. That is something that, like, I feel like they didn't have a whole lot of like real character moments in Fallen Kingdom, and maybe not a ton in Dominion either, but what they did with Wu I thought was a success personally, even though he's sad.
I mean, his character definitely grew,
agree.
and thank you for that. I didn't realize I needed a Jurassic character family tree until you just did that. I need a visual, but that was fun. Thank you for that.
Well, the family tree divulged into my like it wasn't a psychoanalysis. I hate using psychiatric terms that inaccurately, but it was just a kind of dissection of Wu's happenings and how he became where he was. But I mean,
everyone knows you've hit rock bottom once you start wearing a cardigan all the time.
And you hang out with locusts. I feel like that's an issue.
That's secondary to the cardigan.
People can hang out with locusts, and that's just a normal Tuesday for a lot of people.
But cardigan locusts, bad.
Yeah, cardigan. Now I'm picturing locusts wearing cardigans.
Wait, that's actually,
those are locusts that have given up on life.
adorable. Because you see less of its like ugly armor. I'm sorry. I mean, cool design, creative.
No, they're ugly.
I'm sorry. I don't like their armor outside skeleton thing. I would rather see a cardigan.
I feel like a locust with a cardigan would just be like a live action Jiminy Cricket.
Oh, cute.
Which I don't think I like.
Wait, doesn't Dodson also wear like a sweater thing? With like the sleeves partially rolled up. He's also eating all the time.
Does.
Like Dennis Nedry. So he's also like, there's like a callback to that. I think the snack, I think they were doing that intentionally. I don't think anyone would pick up on that unless they were like familiar with the whole Dennis Nedry thing.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that, and that was funny. I mean, yeah, it's just sort of like, oh, hey guys, remember Nedry? But it's like, the other thing, well, I suppose it's like, oh, Dobson wouldn't do that. It's like, I don't know what Dobson would do. He was there for 5 minutes, so I guess it's in character. I don't know, but yeah.
I think the only reason he died was because he was touching that shaving cream can. If he wasn't holding the can, he would have been fine. But it's like that can means death, apparently.
Yeah.
And why was the can even important, I wonder? But also Dodson he's becoming this old, like is also losing his mind. He's becoming, what's the word? A little bit senile, I think. I mean, I can see it in him. He's got those, like he's stuttering. Well, I'm stuttering now. I guess I'm becoming senile too. Oh no, I've just like set myself up for failure. But he's distracted. He's hopping to these different things, and he's got all these ideas, and then he's really frustrated like a child when they don't go well, which also could just be someone who has really bad delayed gratification and self-control, but like also just kind of like snacking all the time and being really flighty and just thinking that everything's going to work out. So he's just kind of a grown child. He's descending into second childishness, and that's why he's not like an evil villain. He's just kind of this like bad grandpa something.
Well, Christian, I told you this when we watched it. I mean, Dodgson, he seems like he really wants to be a bad guy, but he's just not very good at it.
Yeah,
and
he's
so, like,
the nerd.
He has these tantrums that are just laughable. Like, he tries to get angry and throw like this evil tantrum that's going to scare you. It's just like, what are you, man?
Yeah, which I think that goes along with becoming senile as well, because it's so childlike, or like people who don't know how to direct their frustrations into anything but anger. So he's like mad, but he has enough self-awareness at the time to realize there's other people there. Like after he does it, like he doesn't continue breaking things. It's like this little thing you can tell he's about to just like be annoyed, but he has no power. He's this weak old man. So I guess it's the it's the dad's side grandpa. Sam Neill might be the mom's side. Actually, no, I feel like they're both the dad's side grandpa, but like different sides of it. Like you have the more like recluse, and I'm obviously drawing on complete like stereotypes, not like anything real, because this is the whole Jurassic.
I still need to see this family tree, by the way.
We are way off into the weeds.
I'm so confused, but I need visuals here.
There have been some times on this show where we've gone into the thumbtacks and red string territory, but we are in an entirely different weird space right now.
That is definitely my doing. I should have taken Adderall before this, but I don't have a prescription yet, so I couldn't.
Listen, the best thing to come out of that was it you calling him a bad grandpa? And it automatically made me think this movie would have been better if they had Dobson played by Johnny Knoxville. Just full on, unironically. Like he's not even playing Dobson. He's just playing Johnny Knoxville, but he's called Dobson. And it's just like, okay, we're looking at Oscar worthy at this point.
Well, I want to know if this is the same guy from the first movie, because I'm not trying to be offensive, but the guy from the first movie looked very generic, so he could have aged into pretty much any standardly built old white guy.
Well, we know what happened to him because we've seen The Amazing Spider-Man 1. He gets married to Aunt May. They go in the plane and make Spider-Man 2, and she dies. So the plane crashes.
I haven't seen the Amazing Spider-Man series yet.
Because the main guy's played by Richard Parker. So clearly it's just continuing his story. Dodgson is played by the same actor. So I think Amazing Spider-Man and Jurassic World are in the same cinematic universe.
Listen, Pat. No. We've gone too far. This is where we draw the line.
Yeah, I think we might need to try to land this plane, preferably into a giant ice sheet, so that we can drown and freeze to death at the same time. I think that's where we need to land this plane.
Well, I don't even know where to go. I mean, I feel like we haven't talked too much about the original people, even though we've been talking about them the whole time. We didn't talk a ton about them in this movie, except them being on a family tree thing. I don't know how to land, but I do know that in the very first Jurassic Park movie, they did escape in like a helicopter, and now they're in planes. I mean, so I feel like there's got to be some way to jump from like, flying object and the original characters and safe landing, and then we will be in a safe zone. I just don't know how to get there. I don't know how to. I think we need to have the dinosaurs fight first. That's what happens before they.
Preferably, we have to have a completely new dinosaur that we've never heard of before, that's never been hyped up at all, that's just introduced out of nowhere, so it can attack the T-Rex and then get impaled by Claw Dinosaur.
You mean
that was crazy. I would have actually lost I don't know, my soul if the T-Rex didn't get up at the end, because we needed that to happen. It's not realistic at all, but we needed the T-Rex to
Obviously
yes.
The T-Rex is going to win, because the T-Rex is actually secretly the T-Rex is the main character the entire time.
That's
this
right.
Is all just in the T-Rex's movie.
The T-Rex better be in the family tree too.
Maybe that's why there was all that muchness happening in Fallen Kingdom, is like the T-Rex was like, You know what? I actually didn't skip leg day. I want them to see me and all my buddies running on, my very strong thighs because I didn't skip leg day. So that's why there was so much muchness, is that they all worked out really hard, so they had to have all these like crazy muscular dinosaurs.
So would the
You know
T-Rex
how
be
much
like the
money
weird
last movie
cousin,
made?
maybe?
It's my turn to be the star.
I feel like that's the only thing that makes sense. But to make a totally weird transition, going to the original characters now.
Yay, my
There
friends.
was a time
I love them.
not so long ago when Hollywood would do these really brief cameos as fan service and expect that to be enough for fans. But thankfully, films like Spider-Man: No Way Home and this, they actually give them a respectable amount of screen time. And so I do really appreciate that about this film. It's not just a brief cameo and they're gone. Films will say, when it comes to fan service, have gotten better at actually giving these characters, these fan service characters, actual stories and plot time. So I do appreciate that, and it was very fun to see these characters back.
It's because the plebeians are demanding it.
The plebeians? What did you just say?
Yes.
Did you say plebeians?
I said plebeians because that's how Ella Fitzgerald says it in Cry Me a River when she sings it. So
Well, if Ella said it.
That is my reasoning. I'm absolutely not arguing for its correctness or validity, but I am saying there is a reason that I said plebeian and not plebeian.
Well, thank you for that defense. Now it's okay.
Honestly, I think because we can look at production, I suppose production things and what people have been doing, but recent movies have been, I don't know. I'm trying to. I'm thinking of No Way Home, and it's just like they've been a disaster. They've been a disaster for the blockbuster, and you know why? Because some movies know how to do it right. We're talking about No Way Home and stuff. Other movies is just like, oh man, like I said, the plebes like old characters. Bring them in and have them do something. And then yeah.
So this is something that frustrates me. I liked Ian Malcolm. Well, I actually didn't like. I feel like maybe it's just me. But I have rewatched all of the Jurassic Park and World movies, and I think that Ian Malcolm's character is. I think that the people who wrote his character in Dominion knew he's the weird guy who talks about chaos, and they didn't actually understand what he actually believed as a philosophy, because it feels like he's a lot more. I don't know. It doesn't feel
more
quite
quirky.
Right. Yeah,
I will say
it feels like he's being weird for the sake of being weird, as opposed to being weird to serve a purpose. But that's not the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make is I liked when he was being a wizened professor figure, because Jeff Goldblum is an elderly man, right? He was being a wizened professor figure, and so he's fulfilling that role. But they have all three of these old characters who you should be showing.
He has to be a teacher. He likes kids.
Well,
it's true.
Okay. We show all three of these we show all three of these old characters like trying to do action set piece scenes. And I don't know about you guys, but it felt like sad and uncomfortable.
I mean, I liked seeing the characters there. I feel like the locusts were introduced mainly to give our original trio something to do. I think I mentioned this already, but so that frustrated me. But I still feel like I think it's funny you actually mentioned that about Ian Malcolm, because I do feel like his character is a little different. I thought Ellie and Alan were both the same, and it was fun to see them and their characters together. But I don't know if it's just like, oh, it's Jeff Goldblum, we'll make it weird. They were like, hey, let's just make Jeff Goldblum be Jeff Goldblum while playing Ian Malcolm instead of being Ian Malcolm, because I felt like Jeff Goldblum was being way too chill. Like there were times where he was being chill, and he was being his Jeff Goldblumiest in the first film, but in this it was like times where like he's trying to get the code and all that, and they're trying to escape. He is like, he doesn't panic once. He's just like, and you could make the argument that he's seen all before, but it still is like if dinosaurs after them, he's gonna be scared and he's gonna run because it's a dinosaur, it could kill him. Whereas here it's just like he doesn't seem like anything's phasing him.
It's almost as if he knows he's not gonna die because he's Jeff Goldblum.
Older.
Yeah.
But also, I think he's a weird character, and I think the thing, yeah, he's a philosopher, and sometimes he has legitimate things to say, but he is also kind of a jerk. He's like a player jerk, but who also just happens to be kind of smart, like that's always kind of been his thing.
Well, I'm not even worried about that. I'm just saying, like, the whole fear aspect, like in the first film, like just a bit more emotion other than him just being the chill guy, because that was definitely a part of it. But just here, it's just like, yep, I'm just Goldblum, I'm chill. There's a dinosaur. Oh man, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. It's over there. I mean, what's going to happen? And so it was just basically like that. I didn't see a lot of change as far.
Yeah. I think, Jack, I think you are articulating what I didn't know how to articulate, which is that in Jurassic Park, Jeff Goldblum was playing Ian Malcolm. In Jurassic World Dominion, Jeff Goldblum is pretending to be Ian Malcolm, but he's not playing a character. He's just calling himself Ian.
It's what it felt more like.
But it's just Jeff
Would you say he's like the vehicle for like, or more like a mannequin of, like, it's all Jeff, like he's kind of being the vehicle for Ian, but like he's Jeff. I can see that, but I'm kind of okay with it because I just don't really care that much what they do with him, because I feel like he's been exploited enough, because people are always, I don't know, I feel like people like that character. I feel like he takes away appreciation for Sam Neill, who is from New Zealand and has a very heavy accent and is now having an American accent and being an American paleontologist. And not to mention, he's like more, I mean, he's still kind. He's still a kind character, but he's still like a bit of a like more reclusive in these movies. And that is not at all like his, like personality as far as I can tell. I mean, he's the person who's reading children's books on his Instagram to his followers, to himself. Like, he's just like silly, but in a great way. So like he, I think, is doing just a much better job than Jeff. So I'm glad that at this point we are like, I don't know, like finally establishing that maybe Jeff is getting like a little more attention than he needs to be. But I'm also okay with what they did, and I don't care if people notice that he's not being Ian Malcolm, because people were paying too much attention to Ian Malcolm in the first place, and they weren't paying attention to him because he was Ian Malcolm. It was because he was Jeff Goldblum. So that's just been the issue the whole time. And like, look at Sam Neill and Laura Dern for a change.
I mean, I liked Ian Malcolm in the first movie because as Ian Malcolm, right? I didn't think he was a good person. I thought that he was making interesting points. I thought the best. I still maintain this after all 6 of these movies. The best scene in all 6 of these movies is the scene in Jurassic Park where they're all sitting around the dinner table. Yeah, the dinner scene is the best scene in all of these movies.
It's a great scene,
and Ian Malcolm. I mean, that's where he has his famous. Food. Well, yes, okay, but it's not about the food, right? It's not about the food, Spider-Man. It's about sending a message.
But they spared no expense.
Exactly.
Like, Ian Malcolm is one of the people philosophizing in that, and all of them together are like it. None of them alone carry the thing, right? That's the point of ensemble casts, right? And yeah, I can agree that people liking one character disproportionately is a problem. But I wish that I wish that he had kept a consistent characterization as opposed to just stop trying.
Sure.
Speaking of consistent characterization, I'm gonna get my one thing in here, since I didn't get to talk about Jurassic Park with you guys. Talking about that dinner scene thing, that was the scene that really made me appreciate most of the characters, but that one really made me appreciate Ellie Sadler just as a character. Her talking about the big line that always kind of stuck with me is like, you pick these things because they look pretty and they're incredibly dangerous, something like that. And it just, that kind of stuck out to me. And I'm really glad that in Dominion they were pretty consistent with her character. And I'm also glad they got a little bit more time to shine, even though this is a whole nother can of worms that we don't have to address, but I thought of it. I don't know who wrote some of their back and forth But Mercy, I don't know. It must have been a robot. The characterization for all three of them, except Jeff Goldblum we were talking about, is pretty good. Well, darn if they did not sound like humans talking to each other.
They did not sound like humans talking to each other.
Yeah, sorry. That was my sidetrack thing. I wanted to bring it up in the Jurassic Park thing, but I wasn't there, so you know.
Yeah.
We'll just remake it. Why not? Rewrite history.
We'll just do
Background noise world.
We'll just do a reboot.
Jurassic Galaxy. There we go.
In 20 years, we'll do a
okay.
reboot.
They said that this was the conclusion of the series. So if they make the logical next step is in fact Jurassic Galaxy, absolutely, and then it just becomes like the Sharknado movies after that. Well,
Space
okay, no,
dinosaurs.
either that or
Let's
they're
go.
going to they have to go like in between or something. But don't give
them ideas.
Like in between movies, but don't no number 7. Because that ruins how I justified how much they did in Dominion. That was one of the ways I justified it. The other way was like the whole crazy family reunion. That was chaotic way. And also just that, the people were back. And I liked it. But I can't justify the muchness as much if they do Jurassic Galaxy. Like Jurassic World 7. Out of this world. Like, no.
Stop. No. Yeah,
no,
don't give them ideas.
Cyborg.
Number 8, Falling Star.
Now, see, before we get into ratings, I do hate to dash your dreams, but I'm afraid it's already made back double its budget. We're seeing another
No.
I can just see the table of executives. It's just
We all have to agree to not go to Jurassic World 4, just on principle. Just to steal them, rob them of it. No.
Solidarity.
We need them to stop. They've already.
I will agree
they,
not to go for the first week.
They have not only have they beaten the horse to death, they've beaten the dead horse, and then they used amber from fossilized amber mosquito blood of the horse to bring it back to life, and then beat that horse to death, and then created
that horse had a clone,
and then the horse had a clone baby, which they also beat to death.
Okay, but they didn't.
And then they added fish
DNA,
DNA, so
Star Wars has.
It's true. I did like this trilogy more than the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
I think it makes sense to have an original trilogy and then have one more trilogy. And in that one more trilogy, they went a little over the board sometimes.
It was a more fun sequel trilogy. I will give you that. But that's not hard.
Still, I don't know. At least in Dominion, I think it's really like, okay, these are the exact same characters they had the first movie. And they followed like the real timeline of what like our timeline is. Like this could be our world. Not that all of this is completely scientifically possible, but like time-wise, that could be our world. I feel like that's something extra that they have. At least like Star Wars doesn't have that.
Yeah, I'll agree. This was a lot better than the sequel trilogy. There were no somehow Palpatine return moments. If this was on the same tier as the Star Wars sequel trilogy, they would have a CGI John Hammond back via cloning. And I think I would. I don't know. I think I would legitimately start a boycott.
He just keeps walking closer. Spared no expense.
Oh no. No.
I still think we should have gotten the one-armed Samuel L. Jackson back, but maybe in Galaxy we'll get him in space. That'd be awesome.
No, don't give them any ideas.
Please,
they're listening.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Okay.
We need to wrap
We
up
need to
before we
close
give them
this
an entire
out
script.
before we give them any more ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Samuel L. Jackson reprises his role as Mace Windu as well.
Oh.
They're crossing over.
be awesome. But anyway, let's wrap up this fun mess. I guess I'll go first. So for the trilogy, I would probably
remind us of our Jurassic Park ratings. So
I don't remember your guys. Mine. So I think I gave the first Jurassic Park film a 10. I think I gave Lost World a 7, which should have been an 8 if not for that last act. And then the third film I gave like a 6 or something.
Yeah, and I gave Jurassic Park 1 a 10, Lost World a 7 for exactly the same reason.
Yeah.
And then I gave Jurassic Park 3 a 4.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to give, because they're not the best, but I had fun with them. I'd probably give the first one somewhere, I'm still not solid, probably somewhere between a 7 and a 6. I'd give 2, Fallen Kingdom, somewhere between a 6 and a 5. And Dominion, since I like that more than the second one, probably also somewhere between a 7 and a 6.
Okay. Jurassic World, I will give it a 7. It is about as good as Lost World. Fallen Kingdom and Dominion are like 3s. Maybe Dominion is a 4. Maybe it's on par with Jurassic World 3. Actually, no, they're both 3s. They're both worse than Jurassic World 3. I would rather watch Jurassic World 3 than watch either of these again.
I gotta say, I'm not gonna do my Jurassic Park ratings because that's just gonna take up more time. Jurassic World, not bad, fun, 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, I watched it once. I forced myself to watch it for this. It's a 3. I don't know. I don't know what else to say of that we haven't. And then Dominion, it's 4.5. It wasn't as bad, but I mean,
And our guest.
All right. Jurassic World. I feel like I'm giving it like 8 or 9 range. I mean, they're like bringing. I think they did what they needed to do in bringing back the original audience of the original movies, but also making like kids interested in it. And although there were some discrepancies, I think they made it believable enough if you're someone who's not like a movie critic. Like it.
Mm-hmm.
I could see what they were going for. And there was some actual like character things that happened, and they didn't have as muchness. Fallen Kingdom, I did like it. There were things that I like about it, but I have to remind myself so often about what those few things are that I like about it that I'm gonna have to give it like a 4 or 5. But I also hate to do it because I do know there's things about it that I like, but it's also like stealing some from Lost World and whatever. So we're just gonna move right on to Dominion before I change my mind about what I said about Fallen Kingdom. I'm gonna give Dominion. I'm gonna give it like a good 7 or 8 because I think like Jurassic Park and Jurassic World are about this like similarly ranked in my mind because I feel like they're parallels. They're not in terms of their storyline, but I associate them with each other. And then the movie that would come after that for me is Dominion. So I feel like Dominion has to have a comparable score. And I intend to watch it again, like probably within the next 24 hours.
Don't.
You've hurt Joe. You've hurt him deeply.
if you play back the video, you can see the moment where his heart entirely breaks.
You can see
Oh,
the
well.
moment that my soul leaves my eyes.
Oh, Joe, you know that's been going
I tend to have that effect on people. I'm aware of the effect that I have on people.
All right, you brought it back. I recovered. I was able to soulfully recover from that.
Well, anyway, just like this trilogy, I feel like this has been a fun mess of an episode. But Christianna, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast.
Thanks for having me and allowing me to. I think I derailed it a good deal.
Oh, no worries.
I'm not apologizing. I'm just accepting
Sure.
the blame that might come with that.
As long as you understand your role.
Yes.
But this has been Background Noise, where if you've been listening for this long, we really appreciate you because this was asking a lot. But definitely appreciate you. If not, you just missed a fun mess. That's all you missed. So, not sure what our next episode's going to be. I know we've got the new Thor film coming out, so we might do one on that, cover the Thor films. Other than that, we'll release another episode when we feel like releasing another episode. So we will see you then. Bye.
Long live the Jokersaurus.